Hello, friends, and welcome to this podcast. I'm talking about music, and I like to talk about pop music because I think it's kind of a misunderstood word, and it sort of sounds derisive when you say something is a pop song. It sounds like it's some little fluffy throwaway thing that's like an earworm, and you're like, oh, thanks for reminding me of that. Now it's stuck in my head. But there are some amazing pop records, bands, albums, um, entire genres. I would call, instead of calling it like some subgenre, I just call it pop. If it's got a feel to it, is kind of a slightly upbeat, kind of timeless vibe to it. Doesn't really sit exactly in some era or whatever. It's got something that when you hear it, you like it. You like this song. It stays with you. It's the kind of song that will brand a time in your life. Like when you think about when, certain happy experiences and you hear that song later in later years, it takes you back to that happy experience or that happy time. I don't know if that's a full explanation, but that's kind of like what I think of as pop music. Something that is just, it lifts you up. It sounds great. Put the top down in the car and drive through the city and you feel like, wow, this is a good day. I like this day and this song is so great. That's kind of like that's what pop music is, I think. I could be wrong though. But I think pop music is that, and I think one of the sub genres of pop music is kind of this bubblegum pop from the 70s that was hitting some kind of glam elements to it. But there's always the British, and then there's always the American version of the British music or the British version of the American music. And during those years, there was a lot of cross pollination between England and America with certain kinds of pop music. And there's one band I associate with roller skating because when I was a kid, my school went on some trips to the roller skating rink in my town, and they used to play the best pop music. And I didn't really want to roller skate. I can't really balance very well, and so I was never good at skating, roller skating. I was never a skate punk or anything like that. But I never really wanted to roller skate, but I used to sit and I'd get my roller skates. You trade your shoes for roller skates, and I'd just go sit down on the little bleachers that were over there, and I'd kind of pretend like I was having trouble putting my skates on. I didn't really have a lot of friends, so nobody was concerned about me not skating. So I was just kind of sitting there by myself, and I had my skates, and if anybody came up and said anything, I'd say, "Oh yeah, I'll be right there. Let me put this on. I'll be right there." And then when they'd walk away, I'd stop. And what I was doing was listening to the music because they had this awesome sound system in the roller skate rink. They had I guess it was somebody back there playing cassettes or something. I don't know what. Maybe they had it on a reel to reel or some old fashioned kind of music reproduction system because it wasn't the radio. It was just song after song after song like you'd get with a jukebox. But they played the coolest music because it was music that they wanted to play to get people skating and kind of keep people moving around the skating rink. And one of the bands that I used to hear in there and really got a little bit obsessed with in those days was a band called Sweet or The Sweet. And there's an album that they did that I think is considered to be their best or their most popular. I think it's just the Sweet album that you have to get, and it's called Desolation Boulevard. This is such a fun album, and I know you've heard these songs, and probably almost all of these songs. I mean, it's got, but I have the American version, which is on Capitol Records, and I think the American version has Fox on the Run or Ballroom Blitz. It's got some songs that the English version of the album didn't have. So I think the other version that was released in the UK was on RCA. This one is Capitol. Yeah, I think Ballroom Blitz is the one that that this one had that the English one didn't have, and a couple other, and some rearrangements or whatever. But this has got Fox on the Run, the 16s, Ballroom Blitz, great songs. And it's I mean, if you put on your roller skates, it's going to get you moving around the skating rink. It is a poppy, upbeat, bubblegummy album, and these guys were really good. Some people kind of consider them to be like sort of a cheesy boy band kind of thing, like like they didn't play their own instruments, but they did. They played their own instrument. They were actually a band and were actually quite good at their instruments, and they used to dress up in some pretty radical gear. Go on YouTube, check out their videos. They were fantastic. It was Brian Connolly, the lead singer, who had this cool sort of shag haircut and this sort of baby face, and it was really I think he was like the poster child. He was like the front man of the glam bubblegum scene. And Steve Priest, the bass player, always seemed a little bit unhinged on stage, and as well as Andy Scott, the guitar player, and Mick Tucker, the drummer. They all seemed to be a little bit edgy too, which was kind of cool about them. You'll know what I'm talking about if you watch those videos, but they had some great songs. They also did later Love Is Like Oxygen, which I think is just a classic pop song. It's got the coolest guitar riff, and the words are great, and it's got this beautiful interlude where Brian Connolly sings this beautiful, like almost like his ballad voice comes out in this song. But you can't beat Ballroom Blitz and Fox on the Run, and some of their other songs. You can't beat them if you're you gotta get your roller skates out, and or just listen to it and forget that you've heard these songs 30 million times. Listen to them as if you're a teenager hearing them for the first time. And I really will always like Sweet, because it reminds me of when I was a kid, when I would hear them on the radio. And, I started buying the albums, of course, and then I was listening to them in my own house instead of having to pretend to put roller skates on. But they definitely have a sound of the era. They are a bit, dated in that way, but I mean that in a good way. When you listen to it, you get a real feel for the times. The feeling of rock and roll radio at the time, and hits, like the hits coming down the radio, and you feel like the excitement of the teenage rebellion that they were constantly sort of preaching, that kind of like, we're gonna do it. We're the anthemic kind of pop songs, and youth culture and all that kind of stuff. They really embody that to me. And interestingly, I live in Los Angeles, and if you have been to Los Angeles, or if you live in Los Angeles, it's interesting. It was a British band, but they actually are, and the album is called Desolation Boulevard, but they're actually standing on Sunset Boulevard. And interestingly enough, you can see part of the sign right here. It says the full sign says Filthy McNasties, which was a club on Sunset Boulevard back in those days, which later became the Viper Room. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but the Viper Room was, sadly, it's got a sad legacy now as the place where River Phoenix, young actor River Phoenix, ended his life, or his life ended. The circumstances I don't want to get into, but he died here right out in front of the Viper Room. So in a way, there's a kind of a poignancy to this cover, Desolation Boulevard. And another sad thing is that there's a liquor store here and some other things here, very full of history, this area of Sunset Boulevard. And, if you're in town, or if you're planning on visiting Los Angeles, go check it out quick, because evidently they're tearing it all down, and they're going to put in one of those really hideous glass block looking towery things. I don't know, where they can jam a whole bunch of people in there and charge them a whole lot of money to live on formerly seedy Sunset Boulevard. And unfortunately, they're taking that address and turning it into something that it that is no longer going to be interesting. I mean, once they get all these apartment complexes in there, it's not going to be Sunset Boulevard anymore. But anyway, I don't know. I'm getting off on a tangent here about the photograph on the cover. But anyway, Sweet is a great band. Really fun pop band in the truest sense of the word. But they're also a heavy kind of rock band. They used to really, kick out those jams and play the heavy rock riffs. It's like a lot of riffy rock. And Brian Connolly's voice was incredible. He was really good frontman, really good singer. All of them sang, and he could hit those high notes, those sort of those operatic pop high notes. And sadly, there was some sad history to the band, and they had a lot of problems. There's a lot of the superstardom problems that rock stars had, and still have, I guess. But there seemed to be a kind of a darkness to these times in those old days that seemed to follow bands, almost like they really had sold their souls to the devil. But anyway, check this album out. It'll take you back to the happier times of these days with that band, Sweet. And thanks for listening. Sorry this one went off on a tangent about Sunset Boulevard. I don't know why I do that. Anyway, thanks for listening. I'll talk to you again soon.